Hello and welcome, friends. My name is Hunter and we are here once again, but also for the first time in our slow roleplay CK3 little sandbox that we like to play in. Look at this map. When this episode comes out, there'll be a couple of episodes left, a handful, more than 2, less than 5 of the Cornwall series, and I thought that since Wards and Wardens was coming out, I would start the new series immediately. There's no reason to wait. So for a couple of days this week, we're going to have 2 daily series. I expect by Friday, or at very least by next Monday, it'll be back to 1 daily series and then 2 other series that come out on alternating days as it previously was. But we don't want to talk too much about this. Look at this beautiful world. There are a ton of things about this game that are different from any CK3 game that I have really recorded before, and most of my own games. The first is that this is the 1066 map. Yes, I almost never start in 1066 because I like the slow, gradual buildup of technology that comes from starting at the earlier date. The problem with that, though, is that as we experienced in my Cornwall game, when you play as slow as I do, and when a 40-part series only has 3 total kings in it, we may be a little faster this time because of some things I'm going to be doing to speed up the pacing without speeding up the rate of play. But when you're playing 40 episodes and it only covers 3 kings, you really don't get that far into technology level. People make suggestions that you can't do because those technologies are far in the future. So this time we are playing on 1066. Number 2, I almost never start higher than a duke. Usually I start as a count, but today we are playing as a king, a very, very tiny king. At number 3 differences for me, I am playing in a part of the world that I have played in before, if you consider the world to be a very large place. But this particular corner of the world I have never touched, and I'm kind of really excited because I spent some time sort of doing some cursory research on the medieval history of this particular kingdom and this region. So let's just zoom out so you can see everything, because I was hiding my character, obviously, up until this point. I mean, you saw it, it was there. And now that we see our character, let's just double click on him to take ourselves down to our home here in Lohara. Yes, we are playing as Maharaja of Lohara. All right, now that little introduction is over about the state of the game from the perspective of me, the player, and how this is different from my previous games, we're going to get right into talking about our character, our family, our goals, everything else that this game is going to be like. So, we want this to be a slow role-playing game about developing our characters and making as many different outcomes that are interesting as possible. I don't usually play much above speed 3. I only speed up during sieges, and sometimes during very long pilgrimages we're going to speed up. Unlike the last game, though, I am going to use some edits to clear out spaces that are a little boring, just to keep the pace up and so that we can get more done per episode. When I mean boring, I mean chunks of time where I am developing or waiting for things and nothing is happening and no events pop. One of the reasons for this is that it was a hindrance in the last game to my storytelling, that I had to avoid doing things that would make the screen still for too long because it felt like it would be boring to just watch me talking about nothing over top of me basically waiting for my money to go up. So I would oftentimes interject or do things that I wouldn't have otherwise done, and it made a good story, and I really, really do think the Cornwall game was amazing, and I'm so glad that we made it to the end of it and that we did all of our goals in it. But this time, I think that when I get into a position like that where the action I think the character would take simply requires waiting for a period of time, I'm going to wait and cut. So there will be more cuts in this series than the last. I hope that's okay. I think that it will be good for the pacing, and I think that it will end up making a better overall viewing experience. Hopefully, you know, we got to try new things. We're such a new channel, really. So now that we've talked about that little introduction, why am I playing here? Why is it fun for me? Why do I think it's a great idea? First of all, Kashmir is a super... Well, Kashmiri is culture. Kashmir is a super interesting region. It has lots of super interesting people and an enormously diverse cultural and religious history. And I just think that, that CK3 is a game where we'd like to cover all sorts of different periods in time with all sorts of different like exciting things happen, and just this tiny little kingdom and its history in the next couple of years is so interesting to me. So the Lohara dynasty is the third of 3 Hindu dynasties that ruled in this region. It is, generally speaking, the most decadent and the least stable of the 3 dynasties, but it also happens to be the dynasty that we play at this start date. Great. Our character here is the great-grandson of the founder of the dynasty. We will actually look at it because, unlike many of the dynasties in this region, Paradox has actually included our family tree, which is actually kind of rare over here. So if we look up here, we have Maharaja. He is... Now, there are both likely true and likely not true stories about him, but the likely not true story about him was that he was born as a commoner who married either a princess or a queen, and that's how he came to be the ruler of the kingdom after the previous dynasty. I like that story. I think it's fun, but I don't know that it's necessarily historically accurate. What we can say very likely did happen is that he was an excellent military leader, and that his defense of mountain fortresses in his kingdom of Lohara is what stopped the Ghaznavid northern expansion. This kingdom, well, it was just pushing everywhere. It is, look at these guys, these wonderful Turkish Ajari Muslim kingdom down here. Very strong. Very strong. But he was able to defend the mountain forts in Lohara, and he was able to also help defend Trig Arta down here, stopping that northern expansion and keeping these kingdoms, this kingdom and these independent guys in place. And then his children weren't so great, and then his grandchildren weren't so great, and eventually that led to our father having enormous debts. As you can see, we are in an awkward, weird position for a CK3 start. Our father is a 46-year-old man who's totally still alive, and it's not like you see how he has these claims? That's because he was forced to abdicate. See, our mother, who was a bit of a schemer, chose us, our character, Kalaza, over her husband, our father. And basically, she gave him the money he needed to get out of his debts in exchange for him abdicating the throne to their son, and that's me. I am just a very young man, 18 years old, barely even an adult, with a beautiful mustache, by the way. Excellent choice, sir. Gorgeous mustache. So we're king, but no one really takes us seriously, and because nobody takes us seriously, we don't really take the job seriously. Now, historically speaking, we would spend many years in decadence, mostly either at the beginning, ruled by our father directly, and then later in conflict with our father, until eventually we would put him in prison, and he would not live through prison, and he would end up leaving the world by his own hand while he was held in our prison. At that point in time, according to the histories that I read, this young man finally became a decent king for a while. It stayed that way until near the end of his life, when he became a lecherous, a profligate cad. You know, the definition of the word decadent, right? Yeah, he's not a great guy. I don't know what we're going to do with him. I have an idea. The idea is that recently he's been inspired by reading older religious texts and poems related to his Vaishnavite faith, and he's decided to adopt a sort of odd Kashmiri specific version of the faith, which surrounds around the concept of building a great temple and controlling all of the corners of the world. Now, of course, he's a young man, and this kind of idea, becoming a warrior king, excites him, and he's utterly not suited to it. He has an extraordinarily good intrigue education, for one thing. He has no experience as a soldier at all. He is not a general. But this has inspired him to basically focus on the specific aspects of the religion that are Kashmiri, specifically his Kashmiri dynasty's relations. So that is where we're going to talk about our very first mod bit. So we are not actually part of Vaishnavism as per the rest of the world. We are actually Kashmiri Vaishnavite. What does that mean? Literally nothing. We're the exact same fate. The only reason this exists is because we moved one holy site to represent the medieval age temple that was built in this region. During this, it was built by our ancestors. This is an approximation of its position. And it's pretty much thought to have been already in ruin during this time. It's just 500 years later. But not ruin, because these places were all really quite well maintained. I just mean not in strong use. But we've sort of had a religious revelation, and that religious revelation is that if we can't figure out how to solve the problems of our people, our family, and ourself religiously, we will not be able to continue to rule or survive in a land with so many different religious people. Now, the other change I made was to the Kashmiri faith. I made some adjustments here that might be considered by some people to be I don't think I did anything super controversial. I removed equal inheritance because Paradox likes to give that out to a lot of places that don't really validate it. I think the main reason I took it out is because just looking at this dynasty and the dynasties before it, there were a lot of queens that ruled in these dynasties, but they weren't inheritors. They didn't rule because they inherited through the normal means. They ruled because they took what they could, or they were the last choice because there were no strong men left to rule. It's not really what the game means when it says equal inheritance. So we took out equal inheritance and replaced it with religious blending. I think religious blending is a great tradition to represent the fact that while the different groups in Kashmir are individually, in the Kashmiri region, are individually parts of different faiths, as a culture, if they can be unified as a culture at all, they have found ways to integrate each other's faiths and to be respectful to them, at least on the base level. Possibly not among the leadership. Possibly there's been a lot of conflict due to the leaders and having faiths that are different from the common people through this region's history. But as a people, I think using religious blending just shows how the different groups in the region have participated in different religions and lived alongside each other, at least on the regular population level, quite well, even if their leaders don't always match that ideal. And then we gave them stalwart defenders to add to their Himalayan settlers, these two traits together representing the fact that they are historically known for having, this particular region is historically known for having been very difficult for outsiders to conquer, both because of their strong understanding of the mountains, which this is always part of the culture, and because particularly they're good at defending the forts and strongholds to keep out invaders as best they can. So this is how we have adjusted the culture. I'm not going to be hybridizing. In fact, my very specific rule for this game is there will be no hybridization. I would have to have an extraordinarily strong excuse to be hybridized. I want this game to focus on the Kashmiri culture as it's presented, of course, in this little medieval sandbox trying to overcome its problems, trying to unify its people without, you know, suppressing their religion, trying to keep everything strong and unified as a single people, and hybridization doesn't work for that. Okay, anything else that we really need to talk about to start? Talked about how our mother betrayed our father. Well, didn't betray, made a deal, we'll say. Made a scheme, we'll say, to get me in power. Right. I guess we should start with marriages. And while we're getting married, we'll talk about other things. Oh, did we talk about this? We didn't talk about it. We'll do our lifestyle too. We are in an intrigue lifestyle right now because this is how we were brought up by our mother, and this was the expectation of where we would go. We have like weeds in a garden as our only perk for the plus 30 fertility, which I think is great. It definitely strongly matches where he was going to start his life. But I don't know. At this point in time, I would say he is trying to resist this part of his nature. How are we going to represent that? One way we could represent that is by just moving him to something different. We could move him to diplomacy. He imagines himself as being a warrior, so we could move him to martial. Or we could just accept who he is for now and leave him where he's begun. I think for now, he sees himself as a general, as a character out of legend, and I think that he is going to start off learning against his own skills. So where would we be? I think if we're even going to bother with this, we just have to take strategy focus, because we just got to make up for our low natural martial. Basically the only thing we can do. We have 10% from domain. Part of the reason why I picked this, why it was so fascinating to me, is that for a tiny kingdom, we have something really cool, which is we have already got a university. So, you know, other people are going to be coming to our kingdom, and we're going to be also making use of our own university when we have the money for it to teach our children. It also gives us a little bit more flexibility on our learning lifestyles, which I think is cool. What is up here? We're not... Yeah, so we're just going to go down and go through the various things. We don't even hold the duchy title. We are a king who holds one duchy and doesn't even hold the title. That's just... Oh, what a situation. What a situation. I think most of our minor vassals, which we actually have quite a few of, because when you have this many spots in a relatively developed... We're not that developed, but you know what I mean. We're relatively developed, right? Yeah, our development is pretty decent. So it tends to mean that you're going to have some cities, and that means minor vassals everywhere. Mostly, though, because our diplomacy isn't terrible, these guys like us okay, which should mean we don't have to worry too much about them, and that also means a lot of other things. Now, right away here, we have this count here, okay? Vidyardha is Buddhist. He is Kashmiri like us. And he is willing to accept vassalage if we protect his religion. As I said, we want to try to move away from the kinds of activity in the past that has harmed the previous dynasties before us and even our ancestors. And I think doing this to start, getting him into the kingdom by offering him religious exemptions, and not trying to wipe out his faith would be a good place to start. So we're just going to do that right off. We're not going to hold court or do any of that anytime soon. We are going to put up our house banner. And let's see, let's put up our dynasty banner. And we also have branch of one of the wish granting. I don't know this word. So we're not even going to try to pronounce it. Again, I'm going to make an effort to learn more of the words that I need over time. This is really cool. Like, this is just it's really cool. You can see it gives us 1 level of learning per devotion, a bunch of piety, piety per powerful vassal on the council, prestige, and just some court grandeur bonus. So we're just going to... that right there. That is all of our court artifacts. So our court is done. And what does that leave us with? We got to do our marriages. We should also look at our council, I suppose. Nobody here is atrociously bad. That's where we're going to start. So nobody here is so terrible that I feel like I have to remove them. These are the powerful vassals as a rule, it looks like. I think we may just remove the spy master. Oh, we could replace the spy master with our mother. That makes a lot of sense, actually. That makes quite a lot of sense. Does our father have any skills of use? Oh yeah, our father is our steward. Well, that is actually a good... I didn't even think about that. He's not my powerful vassal. He's literally my steward. He's also my heir. But I think putting him in charge here is a good idea. What do we want these guys to do at the beginning? I think we're going to stick with money or better knight. I think better knights to start. And I don't... he's not good enough. I don't want to make trouble for myself, so we're going to stay on domestic affairs. And you can make me money. Are we going to change any part of the territory to be our faith? I think... like, maybe just... I think maybe just the capital? Maybe just the capital? We don't want to be too oppressive with our religious growth. It's not really how we're playing this game. It's not really how we're playing this character. I don't want to remove this guy. I do want my... my vassals to basically... I want to keep them well looked after. I don't want to be too aggressive to it. I don't think my position is strong enough for that. We got courtiers and guests. Many guests. So I'm going to do some guest marriages. I'm going to set the rules for guests. Okay? We are going to only marry people who are from religions that are currently in our culture. So we will marry Bon, these 2 Buddhist faiths, and we're not going to differentiate between the 2 kinds of Vaishnavites, because that's not a thing we're going to do. So let's just get on this, and I will come back when they're all married and point out anybody of particular significance or anything that really matters after I got all these marriages done. Okay, so we have went through and we have done our marriages for everyone except ourselves. Now we have to get a marriage for ourselves. This is going to actually be a little bit more difficult because things are going to be, like, kind of far away. Like, we're going to have a hard time finding anybody anywhere near us. Which is something I usually like to avoid. That's not going to be near us. I don't know why I clicked that. So she's relatively near us. As is her sister. She's cynical, trusting, and brave. Okay. She's like down in here, which is actually kind of close. Her father has a decent number of troops. Between the 2... I think I like the brave one better. She has more... martial. I don't actually know that that's true. Yeah, she has more martials. So if we're going to take one, I think... take one of these 2 girls, it's going to be her. So I think we're going to marry this woman. This young lady. From down here. In this Raj. I don't think we're going to find anybody who makes any more sense, but she is of a different Hindu faith than us. That's fine, though. We'll ask her to convert when she gets here. She probably will. So let's send that proposal out so we can get a marriage. While we did those marriages, this vassalization attempt has ticked through. We're bigger than ever. Of course, as is normal for CK3, this guy we just vassalized now hates us because he thinks he should be on the council. And that leaves us in an interesting position because he is terrible. I don't want to put him in charge of anything. I mean, we could put him on the council in the position where he would do the least damage, or we can just try to... I can just try to change his opinion with sways. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to change his opinion by swaying him. Well, he gets married. We have too few spouses. We still need a physician. Do we have anybody who's at all good at this? No, we don't. Okay, I think we're just going to put our... We're just going to put our priest in charge. I think that's good. We'll station our 2 men-at-arms regiments. We have these bowmen. Guess we put them there, and then we have some mangonels, which all have basically the same amount in them. We'll put them there. We may want to create a men-at-arms regiment. We do have these mountaineers, which are pretty interesting. They're very expensive, though. They're heavy infantry that do well in winter and do well in forests and mountains. There's the regular armored footmen here. I think there's much other than that. We have these bowmen. That's what these guys are. Okay. They are better than regular bowmen. I think we're going to build 1 mountaineer. Just because I like the idea of this unit. And then we're going to station them here, I guess. And with that, I think we're going to put an end to this introductory episode. There is a lot of stuff that we can do here, and I don't want to get too far into it in the first episode. We did all of our maintenance stuff. We did all of our setup. We introduced who we are. We talked about our family. We talked about basic goals. We're probably going to also try to vassalize the other Kashmiri leader. I think if we give him a religious exemption, we can get him. We may want to prioritize swaying him instead, because it might be more useful for us to sway him first. I don't know who I would offer guardianship of. That's crazy. All right, so there we are. So here we are playing in the Kingdom of Lohara with Maharaja Kailaja in Kashmir. This is the beginning of our new series, and I hope you are excited about it and join me for it. That's going to be a long time that we're with this young man and his family. And I hope you come along for the ride. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.